Good evening. I'd like to call the November 20th regular board meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is time for public comment during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. This is a full room tonight. I don't know the last time we've had such a full room like this, so great. Thank you for everyone for coming this evening. If you could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chambers, when you're ready, if you'll call roll, please.
Mr. Nichols.
Here.
Mr. Ross.
Here.
Mr. West.
Here.
Ms. Pritchard.
Here.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we get started, I did just want to take a minute on behalf of the board to congratulate Andrew West on his re-election. This is the first time we're meeting since the election, and I believe Amy Smoyer is here. There, I see a hand way in the back, and congratulations, she is our board-elect who will be taking her oath of office in January. If someone would like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the October meeting.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Pritchard. Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Are there any questions, comments, additions, modifications that need to be made to those board meeting minutes? Hearing none, Mr. Chambers?
Ms. Pritchard.
Aye.
Mr. Nichols.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mr. West.
Yes.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additions, removals, or modifications to this evening's agenda?
No, I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Ross.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. West. Thank you.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mr. West.
Yes.
Mr. Nichols.
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard.
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sable.
Well, good evening, everyone. I think we couldn't have a better time to have so many people at our board meeting this evening with Thanksgiving coming up on Thursday, being thankful for our district and what our district has to offer, and for all of those that support everything that we do, as well as honoring our veterans and our students, honoring our veterans. It's nice to see everybody here this evening. So we have a lot to celebrate this evening. First, I'd like to invite up to the front Principal of Canavan, Gretchen Newton. We have a special recognition this evening.
Good evening, everybody. As Mr. Sable said, my name is Gretchen Newton, and I am the principal of Canavan. Tonight, I am here to publicly thank and celebrate Emily Ousley. Emily is one of our paraprofessionals at Canavan this year. She was just hired in August as a paraprofessional to support our students with some special needs in our behavior unit. So day in and day out, Emily is fantastic. She comes to school, she supports the kids through some challenges that they have. She has built great relationships, she is patient, and she is calm. But most recently, Emily was able to save the day for Canavan. We had a 5th grade student who started choking in the lunchroom, truly not able to breathe. Friends around her started to try to comfort her, realized quickly that it wasn't just coughing, it was choking, and ran to Miss O because she is one of their trusted adults. Miss O was able to make it across the lunchroom unbelievably quickly and without raising any alarm, and was able to do 2 quick abdominal thrusts, Heimlich maneuver, and get the piece of kiwi out of the student's throat. And it was pretty impressive going back and watching the tape. It was a room full of 70 5th graders, which 70 5th graders, they like drama, and I would say maybe only 7 of the kids actually knew what was happening. So Emily was able to keep the entire room calm. The student felt safe. She felt supported the entire time. the whole tape was less than 3 minutes of her being able to get to the student, do the Heimlich, and then get the student down to the nurse. So I just want to make sure that the board and the public realizes just how special our staff is at Canavan and in Medina, especially for being a first-year staff member. Emily stepped right up to the occasion. She faced the challenge, and in the spirit of gratitude and Thanksgiving, like you mentioned, I just wanted to make sure she knew how thankful we are for her at Canavan. So this is just a small way to say thank you, but we are really very lucky to have you, and I just hope we can all celebrate her together.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gretchen. Thank you, Emily. That words can't even say. So thank you so much for being attuned and being able to do that.
And Emily's really an example of the special kind of people that we have working in our district. And we often talk about academics and education, but what we do is so much more than that. It's about the people and the caring. So thank you, Emily. Next up, I'd like to invite Principal Amanda Dodez to share the great things that are happening at Northrop Elementary.
Hi, good evening. I'm Amanda Doty. I'm the principal at Northrop, and thank you so much for having us tonight. We're going to share a little bit with you about the work we've been doing with deeper learning this school year. We started last school year, as did everybody else, and got some great momentum. And as our team was kind of planning a little bit at the end of last school year and over the summer, we wanted to take a little bit of a different direction, and we thought it might help us continue with the momentum if we collaborated together in our building and brought back what we're calling the Garden of Hope at Northrop. So many years ago, we had a garden at Northrop. It has since seen better days. But we thought what a great use of space we could do, and an awesome way we could tie in some science and social studies standards, as well as some fantastic read-alouds, building some vocabulary and background knowledge with our students, and giving them some real-life experiences. So thinking about our district leadership team goals, we know that this year our big goal is to help teachers to understand what deeper learning is, and then to, in turn, give more of those experiences to our students. So we thought, what better way than to let kids kind of dig in a little bit. We were really inspired by the science of hope that we've been learning about back in May, and then continuing at this school year. So we wanted to provide and kind of incorporate all of that. So we're thinking about empowered learning, collaboration, and building background knowledge for students, tying in science and social studies standards. And we really challenged all of our grade levels to think, how do your standards fit into something like this? And to think about some great read-alouds and some great text that might go along with it. So tonight I have two of our fifth grade teachers, Sarah Dreibelbis and Colleen Worley, and fifth grade has done an incredible job tying into this work, and I'm going to let them share a little bit with you about what that looks like. Colleen?
Over the past few months, we have been reading a book titled Flesh by Carl Hiaasen as our class read aloud. It is a realistic fiction story set in the Florida Keys, and it revolves around the dumping of waste into our oceans and our lakes by boats and ships. So we set to work researching rules and regulations involving marine dumping. The students, myself included, were shocked to find out that this is actually allowed. We decided something needed to be done. What started off as a small question has now evolved into a large initiative to raise school and community awareness. The students are learning firsthand what it means to be a global citizen.
In my classroom, my students chose to do types of water pollution, so you can see the types of water pollution up on the screen. Through the Alliance for the Great Lakes and Adopt a Beach program, this summer I became a leader for the Adopt a Beach program. So with Colleen's idea and the idea of water pollution and waste, I thought, well, we could probably use this. So we took the kids to Huntington Beach, which you would think just by looking at it, it's pristine. They clean it every single day. But if you get down and start sifting, there are tons of plastics. So my group here, there's a couple groups that I'll talk about. My group here were the microplastics in the Nurdles group. They presented to all 5th grades before we went to the beach for this cleanup. And they decided to get every student a vial, which you can see her holding, to collect the Nurdles in. And this is just a couple more pictures. We collected over 1,300 microplastics and Nurdles, and that was just in 2 hours there. Some quotes that they had. This group, my oil spills group, I had to talk about them because in 5th grade, our Portrait of a Bee, we focus on collaboration, communication, and problem solving. So this group had a picture of the duck with oil on it. So they decided, and I heard them, they're like, let's take a feather and some motor oil. My dad has some motor oil, I can bring it in. I'm like, oh, I back it up. Let's talk about this. It sounds great. But eventually they came through and did olive oil instead of motor oil, but they problem solved. They soaked that feather in oil, and then they're like, well, on the Dawn bottle, there's that little duck. We can use Dawn. So I had to get a Dawn. They poured the Dawn on the feather, which didn't work. So they're like, well, this didn't work, so what are we gonna do? So they decided, let's soak it in Dawn for a week, and that was their problem solving. And after that week, the feather did look a little better, but they noticed that it would never be back to normal. So.
And in addition, students decided that they wanted to write a persuasive letter to cruise lines urging them to make a change. They also decided to deem the first week of December Water Awareness Week at Northrop, so that's coming up soon, complete with an informational scavenger hunt, a dolphin on the shelf, formerly Elf on the Shelf. The students will be presenting ways to conserve water during Morning Motivator, and they will also be reading nonfiction books to the younger grade levels to raise awareness. And then finally, we will have bracelet sales occurring during lunch periods to raise money for a charitable organization that supports ocean conservation. The bracelets are a way just to show unity, and they'll act as a visual reminder of our pledge to conserve and keep our waters clean. So a little bit of what we'll be doing that week.
May I ask what a nurdle is?
Who said that?
Becky Parker's.
Can I approach? So, nurdles are just pre-plastic. Nurdles are just pre-plastic forms. So companies will have nurdles shipped to them, and then they'll melt them down and mold them. But unfortunately, what happens is sometimes on the cargo ships, in rough seas, they may end up in the ocean or lakes, or they also, whatever company uses it, it could be in the wastewater that they're dumping.
And then the fish eat it, and then we eat the fish, and then they're in us, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, can I ask, so you guys wrote a letter to the city of Cleveland?
We did Carnival Cruise Lines, Norwegian. I think there are about 5 different cruise lines.
Did you get a response?
Can you,
Not yet, but it's only been about 3 weeks, so fingers crossed.
if you want to come
Yeah.
up to the mic, that way everyone can hear you. Thank you.
So it was
Awesome.
about 3 weeks ago that we put the letters off in the mail, so we're hoping for a response. We'll keep you posted.
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to see what they say.
Okay, thank you.
So did they, when they put the feather in the Dawn, did they have any water in with it?
Not the first time.
The second time?
The second time they did, they decided to put water in it with the Dawn and then and then soak it for a week.
P&G really does use Dawn for cleaning everything. If there's big fuel or oil spills, they will send a tanker truck full of Dawn and they'll spread it out on the road and then spray it with fire hoses. That's how they clean it up. Because it really does eat the oil.
Yes,
So,
yes, it did.
I think it was just an amazing example of what this kind of learning can look like. When you think about all of the portrait competencies that were naturally embedded in this work, plus the connection between interdisciplinary with reading and science and social studies, it was just outstanding. And one of the things that I think was most notable was that students who might traditionally struggle in kind of our formal school constructs really thrived in this kind of learning. We talked about that. And when we talk about every student every day, what a great example of it. So thank you for allowing the opportunity this evening to share about
Hey,
this work.
I have one other comment. Just as a longtime engineer, I can tell you when we're looking for new hires, we're looking for kids that can think outside of the box. And this is an activity that they learn as fifth graders, but directly applies when they're graduating college in engineering or science or disciplines. So building the skills early pays off down the road big time.
So we have a career exploration coming up. Would you be available?
Am I being voluntold?
Yes.
Then I can make myself available.
Thank you for coming in and sharing with the board. That was a great presentation.
Yes. Yes, thank you very much. It's nice to see the application that's occurring down at our elementary levels with the deeper learning, and really how extensive the projects are. And when you talk about career exploration, that's something that's not just happening up at the upper grade levels. That's something that's happening down at the elementary levels as well. So those are conversations that we're having with our students, not only in the classroom, but also through experiences to help prepare our students for post high school and post experiences here in Medina City Schools. And that's exactly what our Portrait of a Bee is about. So I really thank our fifth grade team and our teachers over at Northrop for your work and for sharing today.
And Mr. Ross has the nurdles. We'll need to get your nurdles back to you.
I think Mr. West wanted to see them.
Okay. We will. Thank you.
Next up, I'm excited for our students to be able to honor our veterans from our annual Veterans Day essay contest. We have representatives from the American Legion 202 here to share a few words about the annual contest, as well as to introduce our students that were selected as winners this year. So thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you very much. On behalf of American Legion Post 202 and its commander, Phil Grassa, we wish to thank the school administration for once again sponsoring this essay contest for the middle schools titled, "What Does Veterans Day Mean to Me?" The American Legion was honored not only once again to provide judges for this annual event, but this year to provide the funds for the students for the winning essays. This year we had 332 submissions and 8 judges. And as I mentioned last year to the board, all 332 submitters were winners. They were winners because they took time out of their very young lives to think about the service and the sacrifice of our veterans to ensure their freedom. And as I mentioned to the high school students at their assemblies on November the 10th, and I'll mention to you, board members, every day that you wake up free, it's going to be a good day. I also want to recognize 2 teachers who had multiple winners, Miss Weaver from AI Root and Miss Shuck from Claggett. So let's begin with the 6th grade awardees. And all you students, I would ask you to stay after you read. So when we're done reading, we're going to all convene out here and have a group picture, okay? So just stay with us. Okay, our first winner. Our first winner at the 6th grade is the 3rd place winner, Braxton Piscatello, in Mr. Baker's class at Claggett. Braxton, come on up.
Veterans Day. Veterans Day to me means sacrifice. The men and women who unselfishly choose to defend our nation from those that don't like us. They go off to war willingly so that we can enjoy the freedoms that we have here in the USA. The 5 branches of the military all offer different things and protections. The Air Force keeps our skies safe. The Marine keeps our lands and seas safe. The Coast Guard keeps our shores safe. The Army patrols the skies and the ground. And the Navy keeps our oceans near and abroad clear. What they all have in common is they all work toward one goal, keeping America and our friends safe. My Uncle Joey, who lives in Houston, Texas, served 6 years in the Coast Guard. Like many others, he joined at a young age, and it certainly paid off. He had a great career in the Coast Guard, and it rewarded him with many benefits after he was done serving. One often forgotten thing about our veterans is our families also serve with them. They must sacrifice also, along with the soldier, airmen, etc. Many parents miss out on things for their kids while they are developed, which can be bad if the kids don't understand. We must always appreciate what the veterans have done and still do for us. They are true American heroes and must always be honored. Veterans Day means a lot more to the families of those that made the ultimate sacrifice. Some of those sent overseas don't make it back, and we should hold them to the highest honor. Thank you, veterans, and God bless the USA.
Second place at the 6th grade level is Emma Kane, who was in Mr. Carino's class at AI Root. Emma?
Veterans Day is important to me and my family. 3 of my great-grandfathers served in the military. 1 great-grandfather served in the Korean War as a private first class. Another served in World War II and was in charge of 2 armored half-tracks. And 1 worked in a submarine and became a radio man. America's history has more meaning because of the stories my family shares. My family will talk about my great-grandparents' service, at the risk they took, and how they fought for freedom. Through their stories, I am able to connect in a personal way when I learn about history in school. Their service is meaningful to me because it has taught me to stand up for others, fight for what is right, and be thankful for my freedom. Veterans Day is important to me because it honors our servicemen and what they do to keep us safe. They demonstrate bravery just like my great-grandfathers did. The wars my great-grandfathers fought in are now major historical events. In the Korean War, America showed their willingness to end conflict between North and South Korea. In World War II, America joined together to defeat Japan, Nazi Germany, and end the Great Depression. Like my great-grandfathers, veterans today fight to protect us and our freedom. Hearing the stories about my great-grandparents' time in the military makes me proud of who I am and how my family has served our country. Like my great-grandparents, all veterans are heroes with remarkable stories.
And then coming in first place in the 6th grade is Jovi Gay, Mr. Wyans' class at Claggett Middle School.
Veterans Day has always been a part of my life, but I had never really paid attention to the holiday before. When I was asked to write this essay, I thought it would be easy and that everyone knew what it meant. But do we know what it means to us? Veterans Day is a day when we can celebrate the many people who gave up their time, energy, and in some cases, their lives to serve us. Veterans are real heroes. They endure countless hours of training, hoping that they might be given the chance to serve their country. The veterans who have fought in the war have suffered so many horrible things just so we can live safely and comfortably. They have lived through terrible things so we wouldn't have to. They've done so much for us that it makes me wonder where we would be without them. What would life be like without those brave, courageous people who have volunteered to serve us? Would most of us even be here if they hadn't stepped in to fight? Veterans deserve our utmost respect. They have done so much for the whole country. They have sacrificed things we don't even know about. They have done so much for each individual in the United States, and it puts into perspective how much we need these amazing people in our lives. So this Veterans Day, remember those people, and please remember to thank them for all they have done for us.
As we move on to the 7th grade now, the 3rd place winner is Sophia Blanco, Mr. Waimera's class at Claggett Middle School. Sophia?
For a blessing or curse, today we honor those who we love most. Men and women risking their lives for our country we call home. Our home, such a beautiful place we are forever grateful for who fought for our lives while putting theirs in danger. I don't know if saying thank you will ever be enough. I don't know if one day to honor veterans will show my gratitude for you. What I do know is that no matter what, I will always thank those who are brave enough to serve, to sacrifice their life to serve in any branch of the U.S. military. Without these men and women, we wouldn't be able to call the United States of America home. It didn't matter if they were nervous, scared, or even terrified. They still gave it their all and fought for our country. The country where we are proud to know that we have freedom. We are proud to know that our voices will be heard. We wouldn't be able to do any of that if our veterans didn't fight until the end of World War I, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918, where our rights were preserved, giving us that proud American freedom we hold today. We are truly blessed as Americans to have these men and women fight for our country we love, because without these veterans, the United States of America wouldn't be so united.
Second place at 7th grade is Noah Parker, who is teacher was Miss Weaver at AI Root. Noah? Here you go, buddy. Take your time.
Veterans Day means a lot of things to me, but it is mostly to honor those people who put not only their bodies and their minds at risk for our country. I know how hard war is for people's minds because I experience it daily. My dad was in the military for 13 years and was deployed 5 times. My dad has been in places like Iraq and Fort Bragg while he was in the Army. Shortly after my dad got out of the military, he was diagnosed with severe PTSD. My dad and the rest of my family have been learning to adapt to this for years, and we are still learning. My dad has helped a lot in the last couple of years. My dad has been sober for the last 5 years. This has helped my dad overcome struggles that he had before he stopped drinking. War can be hard not only on your mind but also on your body. If you are lucky enough to survive, you will still have many problems. My dad has had many back issues from the military. There were times when my dad was on the floor and couldn't get up because of his back. Recently, my dad started working out and it has fixed all of his problems. Overall, war is a terrible thing, and veterans deserve a lot more respect than people give them. If you survive, war lasts a long time, even if you're not still fighting for this amazing country.
And number 1 at the 7th grade level is Naomi Sudemeyer, also Miss Weaver's class, one of her students at AI Root. So Miss Weaver has 2 winners this year. I think there's a bonus in order someplace. I don't know.
As Veterans Day approaches, I couldn't help but connect the Pledge of Allegiance that we recite every day to Veterans Day. As the words left my lips, I began to deliberate more and more about Veterans Day until I found myself talking with my Vietnam War grandpa, who fought to give us and protect our freedom. I had asked the question, "What were you thinking while you fought?" And his response concluded, "I had to protect my country." I then realized that Veterans Day means realizing what happened to the veterans, as some ended up wounded or worse, even those without physical injuries gave. All will be forever remembered. Over the years, when I asked him about war, I found he had not told anyone some of these things that he shared with me before. He told me stories about Vietnam, and I couldn't help but think how blessed we are. As men and women fought, putting their lives on the line every minute, it opened my eyes to really appreciate those that serve and all veterans. As some served on the battlefield, while others helped by using their skills in other specific ways, they all made a difference. In my eyes, a veteran isn't just a figure who stands holding a gun, but someone who gives their gift to serve our country, as the majority of fighting veterans weren't able to have a say in whether they fought or not. But without them, America wouldn't be the same.
So now we go to the 8th grade. And the 3rd place winner at the 8th grade is Kelsey. No, she's not here, but I'll mention her name. Kelsey Mars, Mrs. Shuck's class at Claggett Middle School. She could not make it, but we'll make sure she gets her award. It was a fantastic paper. Number 2 at the 8th grade level is Amara Miller, also Mrs. Shuck's class at Claggett Middle School. So there's another one we want to give a bonus to. Amara, come on up.
Many people think that Veterans Day is just another day of the year set to remember people who have served for our country. However, Veterans Day means something else to me. It is a day for me to remember my family and the suffering and sacrifices my family and so many others made in order for us to have freedoms that we have today. I have had many veterans in my family, 7 most recently, that I have learned about. Today I want to honor my grandma's uncle, Claiborne Buckner, for the many sacrifices he made for our freedoms. He worked in the Army, fought for many, and made many sacrifices for our freedoms. He worked in the Army, fought in World War II, and was forced into the Bataan Death March. The march was a horrific march that we lost many men in. It is and will always be remembered as an absolute tragedy. The prisoners of war were forced to march through fierce conditions without any proper medical care and were given very little food or water. During the Bataan Death March, we sadly lost around 10,000 men. Claiborne was a prisoner of war for 3.5 years by the Japanese and was released when the war ended in 1945. Claiborne was a fighter and a survivor. However, after he returned home, he was constantly getting sick and sadly died several years later of cancer. Veterans are a group of men and women who have risked their lives for us and our country. They have had to leave their families and risk everything to simply ensure our safety and our freedoms. I can't thank them enough for everything they have done for us. Why should a member of the Army risk their life for me, a 13-year-old stranger? I know that I probably won't ever be brave enough to risk my life for our country. In conclusion, I would like to thank all the men and the women who have helped save me and millions of other people. You have risked your lives fighting for our country, and my thanks can't even show how glad I am that you fought and still fight today.
Before I bring up our final winner this year, I want to also make note that the person that started this whole thing, and now we're like 3 years or 4 years into it, is right there, Ron Ross. Give him a hand. Great job. He was West Point. I went to Army Officer Candidate School. I wasn't smart enough to go to West Point. But we both wore the same rank, right? Okay, and the final first place award winner at the 8th grade level is Veronica DeLong. And I have to say something here. Her essay was submitted in the form of prose. First time we've seen that. And I picked up the essay to bring it to the table from the grader so I could see where it belonged in the stack, as we have a systematic way of doing this. And the grader, I think it was you, Jim, wasn't it? Jim Hosley, he says, read it. I said, well, I'm busy. He said, you got to read it. So I read it. And I said, oh my. So anyway, after we were done all the essays, my wife, a former teacher at Garfield Middle School and Claggett, she read it for all the judges. It was outstanding. Come on up here. I hope I didn't make you nervous. Go right ahead. Take your time.
Thank you. Every year, the leaves will turn from a rich green to a blindingly bright red. And every year, the pungent summer sunshine slowly fades away as the temperature drops. And every year, one day in November passes in the blink of an eye, barely celebrated, or at least not celebrated enough. 11/11. Every year, I have had a chance to reflect on this day, and every year it is so hard to explain on paper. Words coming left and right, freedom, fight. I know so many veterans and yet barely anything at all. Grandpa, uncle, stepfather, they all did so much and worked so hard. It's a rough ride. Dedication, pride. They sacrificed being with their family. Overseas they go, put their lives on hold to serve a country of people who barely know them and barely understand the struggles. Honor flushed into their brains, bravery, sacrifice, and pain. Survivors and those who didn't make it came together for the goal of serving our country, came together for us. They deserve every bit of recognition they get. Taps and gun salutes at funerals, the special flag just for them. I see it and tears roll down my face. They worked for that. They deserved that. Some risked their lives for that. Some even died for that. And every year I barely acknowledge it, for my own selfish reasons. Why does that matter? They matter. Now, every year, I thank you, veterans. I know it's not a traditional essay, but I wanted to write a poem because I feel they can let out the most emotions on paper and show the most without saying too much. I've also found it's not always what you say, it's how you say it, and this shows what I think. Veterans Day means a lot to me because of these core values of strength and banding together for our country. We barely meet the tiniest fraction of our own country, and yet there are so many veterans that will still fight. Fight for a country of people when they barely know half of them. Risk their lives for them. Personally, I don't think I give them enough attention or credit. My stepdad is a proud Air Force veteran. He loves the Air Force and has many magnets, car stickers, and signs he puts everywhere. My Uncle Joe and grandfather have both passed and were both in the Army. Seeing how they were honored was amazing to watch. It is something to be celebrated and proud of. Finally, I just want to say thank you to veterans everywhere. What you do is amazing.
So that's us. Thank you again for this opportunity, and especially to Ron, who started this whole thing. You've got quite a legacy now. And students, I'd ask for you and the parents to just let's go outside there, and we'll get our annual photo with the judges that were there. Okay? Thank you all, and God bless you.
We're just going to take a 5-minute break, and we'll be back. And we're back. Thank you very much. That's a tough act to follow. Those were great essays, and I'm glad to hear we had such a great turnout. Over 332, I believe.
Yeah, it was
That's
outstanding.
fantastic.
Yeah, I'd hate to be the people who have to present next. With that, I'd like to invite Tina Cassidy and Sarah Jackson. We actually have a very important presentation coming up next. We have been working very hard with our elementary staff on an English language arts adoption and transitioning our English language arts programming to the science of reading, which is a new mandate from the, I want to say Department of Education. They are now the Department of
Education and Workforce.
There we go, Education Workforce, which we're actually going to approve something about that tonight. So I want to thank Tina and Sarah for joining us tonight to present the potential new curriculum for a first reading of the board.
So like Aaron said, we are in the midst of an elementary ELA adoption, and Sarah Jackson and Tracy Swantek have been really leading the charge. So I'm going to let them tell you all about it. I am going to turn it over right now to Sarah Jackson.
Good evening. I couldn't agree more. That was a really hard act to follow. The students were just so inspiring, and the work they put together was amazing. So tonight I'd like to present to the board on behalf of our Elementary ELA Adoption Committee, Amplifies Core Knowledge Language Program, otherwise known as CKLA, for consideration for adoption as our kindergarten through 5th grade English Language Arts curriculum. In March of 2022, we convened a committee of elementary teachers representing every grade level and every elementary building within our district to embark on a journey to help us to identify a curriculum for our elementary program. Before the committee ever laid eyes on a curricular resource, we really spent time thinking about what we needed within our next curriculum to represent the work that we wanted to see within the district and the priorities both from our staff and the initiatives that we are moving forward. Our curriculum spent time really understanding Ohio's learning standards and ensuring that as we looked at the resources that we had available to us, that we identified a curriculum that would fully align to the skills and content that we are asked to represent within our kindergarten and 5th grade classrooms. We also wanted to make sure that as we reviewed curriculums to think about in the future, that we identified a curriculum that would truly create a pathway to further our work in deeper learning and fully align to the opportunities that we are looking to bring forth when we think about Portrait of a Bee competencies. The committee also spent several meetings really looking at the research and evidence-based practices that we know we needed a part of our curriculum and a part of the daily experiences within a classroom to continue to grow all students as successful readers and writers. And throughout the first phase of our adoption process, we continue to survey all of our elementary staff to hear from them to understand what they also wanted to see in our curriculum moving forward. As we considered all of these critical factors in thinking about the curriculum that we wanted to see, our committee developed a vision statement that truly became the lens we used as we looked at the curriculums to identify the best fit for our district. As I had shared within phase 1 from March to August 2022, our committee spent time looking through all of this information and developing this vision. After that step of our process from September to October 2022, the committee spent time and did due diligence in looking through all of the resources that were available for us to consider in the way of our curriculum. And I can't thank the committee enough for all of the time and effort they put into ensuring that we landed on a curriculum that would align to the vision that we started with. using that vision statement and all of these considerations, the committee identified CKLA as the curriculum that they wanted to move forward with. Starting in January 2023, we moved into the second phase of our adoption process where we had an opportunity to trial the curriculum. And it really gave the committee a wonderful opportunity to understand the curriculum from an implementation level, to understand what it felt like to teach the curriculum, but as equally important, to really understand how students responded to the curriculum and the learning experiences within CKLA. From March to April 2023, our committee came back together, reviewed what we learned through the trial implementation process, and decided to continue moving forward with CKLA for consideration for adoption. This September, we had an opportunity to launch our second phase of our trial implementation, which is a year-long implementation of the curriculum that is taking place at specific grade levels across all of our elementaries to continue to deepen our understanding of the framework. As we have learned about the curriculum and really understood the opportunities available to our students, we are excited to present this curriculum to the board for consideration for adoption. If the board chooses to vote for this curriculum as our next English Language Arts curriculum in our elementary programs, we will look to utilize the rest of the school year to train our elementary teachers on understanding the curriculum with the intent to implement next school year. So thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Sarah. I know you've shared with the curriculum committee monthly updates. In fact, today the curriculum committee met. Joe and I were there and received monthly updates. And then Joe and I also mentioned last month how we were able to go into the classrooms and the students are engaged. It seems like a wonderful curriculum. And I know the state is requiring this, and that we have to adopt this for next school year, the fiscal year 2024. So I think it's great that you were able to share this with the board tonight to consider in order to make sure we get all the PD that our teachers are going to need before they begin implementation.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your time involved.
And again, we have, excuse me, an item that I'll be presenting to the board later in the consent agenda, and that's to place these items on public review until our next regular board meeting in December, where they would be presented for adoption pending any questions. Next item up on the agenda is Helping Hands Preschool. As part of our redistricting process, we are looking at transitioning Helping Hands Preschool over to Heritage Elementary School. In order to do that, we need to make some adjustments to Heritage Elementary School to accommodate that special education program. And here tonight, Ryan O'Cole, our Director of Business Affairs, as well as our Assistant Superintendent, Chris Kwolek, are here to update the board and share detailed information about those plans. We do have a recommendation on the board agenda for later for architectural services to proceed with the first phase of the project that's being presented tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Sable. Our hope with this presentation is to provide some background information on our preschool programming and answer some of the questions we've all heard in the community to try to provide some clarity. And also, Mr. O'Call will present you with some plans on the building as well. I wanted to start off with kind of explaining why we need a preschool program to try to help to answer any of those questions out in the community. So I did include the new slide, as you guys shared, for the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. And just for clarity's sake, that is the same as the old Ohio Department of Education. It's nothing different than that. So in Ohio, preschool special education is required from public school districts from age 3 to age 5. And so when we say that, it's required by a student's 3rd birthday. And so I think the reason that's important to talk to the board about is that's not on a school year basis. So that's throughout the school year. So if I have a child who's turning 3 on February 2nd, we have to have that child assessed and provide services on February 2nd, which is why preschool programming is so difficult to plan for, because throughout the year, children qualify and have to be provided services. So services on a child's 3rd birthday can be added to or have to be provided throughout the school year. And that's why you'll see that we add classrooms or add services throughout the year. Preschool is also an underfunded mandate. Before we came up here, I was looking up. The state of Ohio provides us $43,810.94 for our special ed preschool programming. Our program, Dave and I were talking about this today, I don't have it off the top of my head, but costs several $1 million. So when we call something an underfunded mandate, it's the difference between several $1 million and $43,000, which is what we're provided from the state. So I want to make sure that those points are shared with you. Preschool services can range anywhere from a classroom where students in our classroom to all kinds of itinerant services or different programming. And again, you don't know what it's going to be because you're working with a child on their 3rd birthday for the most part, in addition to students moving in who could already have received preschool services. Services are required based on a child's, what we call in the special ed world, LRE, or least restrictive environment. So a student's IEP dictates what services they are provided. In addition to all of those things, there are some new mandates coming out of the state that are requiring regular education preschool programming. So the reason we are also looking for a larger space for the preschool is a new mandate that's requiring some students may need to be serviced in our buildings in a regular education preschool setting, which means we have to provide a classroom taught by a regular education preschool teacher in a regular education preschool setting. So these are just all things that I want to make sure the public understands as to why this, regardless of anything else, is something our district is having to work with. Another thing I've heard out in the community is, why are you providing a daycare preschool? We have a lot of those in the community. Again, we're not looking to compete with daycares or provide preschool to the community. This is something we're legally mandated to provide for students with disabilities, and it's something that we have to provide as a public school district. We do have same-age peers in our preschool because, again, we have to provide students the least restrictive environment. So there are peers in our program, but those parents pay for those services. And it's not a daycare. Ryan wanted me to say that again. So if you hear that out in the community, you're welcome again to refer them to us so that we can try to explain that to them. The other thing, Ryan's going to talk a little bit about this as well, is people have said to us, well, why can't the preschool just go to a building as it is? There are lots of preschool licensing requirements, and those are governed by the state as well. And those require certain bathrooms. The analogy I've used with people is if you ran a daycare out of your house, you'd have licensing requirements. If you think about having a number of 3-year-olds, some of whom aren't potty trained, together in a room, you're not going to say, oh, you need to go to the bathroom? Good luck, I'll see you in a little bit, right? They're going to need to be supervised when they need to use the restroom. You're not going to leave them alone. And so we have to have restrooms in classrooms. We have to be able to supervise students. So there's a lot of additional requirements in a preschool setting that you might not need in a 5th grade, so to speak. In addition, the other thing we're hearing out in the community is, well, why don't you have a preschool in each building then? If you have multiple buildings, can you split them up? We've looked at that, but it's not economically feasible because when they come for a site visit, you need to have all the services at each of those sites. So you need to have a preschool supervisor on site at each of those sites. You need to meet the licensure standards at each of those sites. So it's much more economically feasible to have everything in one location. In addition, in terms of space right now, we currently have 7 classrooms. But if you remember at the beginning, I shared with you students qualify at their 3rd birthday, which rotates throughout the year. So every year in the past several years, we've been adding a classroom per year. So we are already looking at starting next year with 8 or 9 classrooms. So we're already outgrowing, even if there was space, which there is not any longer at Northrop, to be in one building as it is. So I'm going to let Ryan share a little bit about the site we're going to be moving to, unless you guys want to ask questions
Yeah,
now.
thank you, Dr. Kwolek. Real quick, thank you for sharing that information, because I don't think a lot of people did know about the third birthday and how that changes the number of students enrolled throughout the course of the year. Also, I know a lot of these things are changing, but we've had Helping Hands for how many years now?
Since I've been here, I mean, which one? Thanks, Mrs. Doty. Since 2000. No, 25 or 26. Oh, 26. I was going to say, I've been here 26, and it's been here since I've been here. So it's since special education preschool was mandated, which would be, I would think, almost 30 years.
Okay, that's why I think it's important for the community to know, too, that there's been
At least 30.
at least 30 years. This isn't something new we're implementing now.
No.
There's some changes, but we've had the Helping Hands preschool in our district for 30 years at least.
At least, yes.
Thank you.
So as we started to look at our facilities, Heritage kind of went to the top. It's a 47,000 square foot elementary school currently. That is the smallest elementary that we have. It is an elementary that does not have a standalone gym and cafeteria. It's a shared space. So it just kind of fit what we were looking for in a preschool. So as you can see on the drawing here, there's some architectural markups on it to the north or the top of your screen. That's where the new playground's going to be. There's an existing playground there. I have some pictures of what that is. This is the existing playground. This will become the preschool playground as well. There has to be multiple surfaces and different pieces of equipment. So going back a screen here, further to the north, you see a little cube that's drawn. That will be a particular soft surface with swings. And then to the north and to the west, or the top left, you can see they added a piece of equipment there that will be a preschool jungle gym or play stuff. Is that the official term? Yeah. I looked to Heather Mix in the back, the preschool coordinator. Stuff is an appropriate term. So this is the existing playground. The pavilion will stay. We'll do a soft surface to the left of the pavilion. And then this is another view. What you see, the grass ahead of you, or in the foreground before the asphalt, will be then more soft surface, and that's where that piece of equipment or play stuff is going to be located. This is an existing layout of the building. So this is an overview of the site map you just saw. As you come in, the office is off to the side, and then this facility is a split level, so you will go up or down. And in this current setting, it is an open concept. There's no walls in this building. So our intent is we plan to do a project this summer using sales tax dollars to complete a renovation that's going to provide walls for these classrooms and get the bathrooms up to the preschool standard of the right side of the common bathroom will have two stalls, and then the left side will have a changing station. So that's necessary for a preschool. So this next drawing, this is the lower level again, and this is kind of the mock-up of what this would look like. So now you can see we've added walls in there and divided the space. One of the questions that we do get a lot is, why wouldn't you have put walls in Heritage as is and use it as an elementary? And as you'll see, with this particular floor, when we've split it up and added some classrooms, and then when I go to the upper level, we're gonna start with 10 classrooms with 16 kids in a classroom. That's 160 kids that we're able to put in this elementary with the walls. And we're not going to leave a lot of extra space. So that's, again, why this building in particular became a candidate for the preschool, is we can divide it into the sections that we need attached to the bathrooms, and we'll have
little space left over, but it goes into the why we didn't do this as an elementary. There's not enough space in this building to divide it and with walls and still have the number of kids that we have in there now. I think Heritage is at 320-ish, and we're going to put in there 160 to start, 10 classrooms, with the possible expansion of 2 more to get it to 192.
Ryan, what are those dots mean?
Those dots are currently pillars that hold the ceiling up. They were from the architectural drawings. Okay. So this is the upper level. And again, it's the crosses you see in there are just room dividers that are in there now, coat racks and things like that. So those are, and then what we plan to do in the upper level is, again, put classrooms. So is this where do you want me to show you?
This is the interactive portion of the presentation. Oh my gosh, he's like Bob Barker.
Next up, next contestant on The Price is Right. $1. All right, so in the current setup of Heritage the way it is, this is the teacher's lounge. It has 2 bathrooms. We will convert one to be a preschool bathroom. The other side will then become a adult staff bathroom. This particular room here is part of, these 2 rooms are existing walled rooms. So what we plan to do here is make this a sensory room. So this particular classroom will be attached to the sensory room. This room will also have, this is a corrugated or folding wall, much similar to the one that divides this room. So it will have access then to the sensory room as well. This particular room and this room are attached to the existing bathroom. And this is where, like Chris said earlier, rooms have to be attached to bathrooms. So in order to accomplish that, we're doing 2 rooms here, 2 rooms here, and then we're going to bid this separately. This will be alternative. So this will be classroom number 11 and classroom number 12 with 2 bathrooms. And we can see where the pricing comes in on doing these rooms now, or it leaves room for expansion. So like I said earlier, we're going to use the sales tax dollars to do this project, and other items we're going to wait in the district, paving and roofing. But if this comes in too high and we want to wait and hold off for another year, that'll give us a little more flexibility with the sales tax dollars that we have left. So.
And Ryan, when you say we'll hold off on those other items like paving and roofing, that's our normal maintenance that we would do every year based on our schedule of maintenance?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll go back to the podium for questions. Did you say sales tax? I did say sales tax dollars. What? So again, that is a sales tax dollar project is how we're going to fund that conversion.
Which is not general fund money.
That is correct.
And initially, the intent was to do the entire project, but with the levy not passing a few weeks ago, Ryan has been working with the architects to decrease the costs of the project or find ways to cut back on those costs. And one way of doing that is to separate out part of that project, or potentially separate out part of that project that we know we will eventually need that, but not have to do it right away. Of course, part of that calculation goes into increased costs to do it down the road as supplies and labor go up as well.
And I think it is important, just again, to state that we've made a commitment with the sales tax dollars to use that for our capital improvement projects, which primarily have just been our regular maintenance that we work on every year.
Yeah, annually, we usually spend close to $2 million on either roofing or paving, or a combination of both, and other summer projects. And again, this project is projected to come in right at the $2 million. So we're hoping we still have some paving projects that we would really like to do this summer, as well as one particular roof that might get done regardless of this. But if we can hold off those other 2 classrooms, that will help with that.
Ryan, I know I asked this question in the work session, but just to reiterate it, you had mentioned that there is one temporary wall on there. Everything else is going to be a permanent wall, correct?
That is correct. And the temporary wall is in an existing room. And when Heather and I met, the particular room that is connected with the temporary, or like this particular wall here that slides out and divides the room, the room that she has planned that's going to be attached to the sensory room that has the wall, she felt like most of the time that was going to be either open or partially open because of the students that will be in and out of that room. Is that fair?
Ryan, are there going to be safety upgrades, or does Heritage already meet our safety standards?
Well, Ron, that's an interesting question, because we're taking an open concept building and we're putting walls. It allows for us to do Alice drills, shelter in place, and things that the way Heritage has been set up previous to this makes that a difficult concept. So if an intruder came into that facility after renovations, students can shelter in place and shut doors. So it'll be a much safer facility.
But what about, like, in the front, doesn't it have one of those vestibule lock?
Yeah, we do have a vestibule with man trap there, yes.
Yeah, man trap.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that building does have a man trap. They have the cameras inside the man trap that the secretaries have at their desk. So yeah, we've made some accommodations already to make that building more safe.
Yeah, okay.
In terms of building codes, I thought Mr. Ross might be mentioning about building codes, because at the time that building was built, it was up to code.
Yes.
Codes change, though, every year.
Yes, they do. And we've been working very closely with the building department here in Medina as well. So we're pushing plans through them as well as we go down this process. So Dan Gladish has been phenomenal to work with. He's outstanding resource for the district. To have him, that he's able to come over and work with us on plans, has been great.
Thank you.
And then I know you said you're going to bid out classroom 11 and 12. That's going to stick out the side there that we have up. Do we have an idea of when that might become, we need classroom 11 and 12?
Yeah, you want to go for that?
So next year, well, right now we have 7. We probably need 8. Next year, we plan on adding 1 every year. So it's hard to say, again, because you don't know who's going to move here and you don't know how many kids by their 3rd birthday. But I think we can make it through next year. It's just like when I give you enrollment numbers and I say, well, this is what we have now, but who knows who's going to move in or out. So hopefully we could make it through next year. But beyond that, I don't know that we can make any promises.
But we're starting, we'll start with 8, and then 9, 10 will be available as the year progresses, and then we can decide moving forward if 11, 12 is an option. And we have the option, if the price comes in and it doesn't make sense to hold off, then we'll do 11 and 12 while we're doing that.
Chris, I have a question. So when the kid turns 3, so a child turns 3 tomorrow, how do we know? Does a parent bring them immediately up to be tested? I mean, how does that work? Just to kind of explain it to everybody.
That's That's a good question. Sometimes we don't know. A lot of times kids are in Help Me Grow or their pediatrician, and so we get, best case scenario, we're told early because they're in Help Me Grow or Head Start, and they're telling us, hey, this child's about to turn 3, and you have a head start on getting them evaluated. Other times you don't. So if we're made aware, then they're due by the 3rd, but sometimes Heather will get a call a week before their 3rd birthday, and we still, so yeah, it's really a big challenge. And that's why it's hard, but Jim will tell you, I think we've added a preschool classroom for the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years because the numbers are growing. And that's a good, I mean, it's a testament to early intervention, but it's also a testament to there's a lot of students who qualify.
And the students who qualify, they are unable to attend a private school because of the private preschool because the resources are not available. Is that correct?
I would say they qualify for public school special ed services. That's what I would say. I don't know that I'd say yes to that. I would say they qualify for public school special ed services that have to be provided to them, unless the parent chooses not to take them.
I would imagine as adding classrooms is difficult to get the certified personnel that you would need as well.
Yes, because we need to find if you had a classroom, you have to add a special
You have to have a
teacher.
special education certified teacher and then a certified paraprofessional too,
Correct.
which are hard to come by.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
And the last item I have for discussion with the board tonight, I feel like I'm taking the entire meeting. I think it's important that we have follow-up conversation from our work session last week regarding the bond and levy issue. Obviously, our bond and levy issue did not pass, and just to state for the public, we did have a work session last week so that the board could have conversation regarding next steps to take now that the levy did not pass in making decisions in regards to both the bond and the operating levy. And I think there was very good conversation, discussion, and some direction that was generated out of that work session. We did follow up that work session with communications to our staff as well as to our parents and community who are on our listserv, summarizing the discussion that occurred at that meeting. Tonight, what I'd like to do is I did put together a presentation to again summarize some of that information as well as add some additional detail to provide the board in assisting in making a decision moving forward. I do want to emphasize that we are unfortunately on a very short timeline in making a decision. I know nobody here wants to rush towards making a decision as big as this, but the board does have to pass 2 resolutions by December 20th. And there has to be time between those resolutions so that Dave Chambers can submit those to the auditor for approval before coming back to the board between the 2 resolutions. So the operating levy options, we are looking at potentially going on the ballot on March 7th of 2024. The date of 2024 is important, and that is going to be woven throughout this presentation because we have lost a year of collection time. Not passing in November of 2023 means we've lost a year of collection. The way levies work is once a levy passes, the collection date begins the January of the following year. So if we had passed this past November, we would have been collecting on that levy in January of 2024. So we've lost approximately $12 million of collection, which is going to be impactful on the district. In order to pass a levy to make up those dollars, the board would have to approve putting an 8.5 mil operating levy on the ballot. There was a lot of discussion at the work session regarding whether it was realistic to go to the community and ask for an operating levy of that size, which would be approximately $300 per 100,000 of the auditor's assessed value. And I think it was agreed upon that that was not a realistic ask of the community with the feedback that had been received with the concern from constituents regarding how they were feeling with property value increases. The other piece to that is the bond issue that we had up on the ballot. At this time, based off of the conversation from the work session, it's not advised to proceed with the bond issue on the ballot at this time. And again, that's based off of similar feedback as to why not to proceed with 8.5 mil. That the ask from the feedback that we got is just too much at this time. In terms of our yellow plan and proceeding with the 5, 6, 7, 8 building, that does put us in a situation where we are not at this time able to proceed. The board did discuss, and is my understanding, is interested in continuing to discuss alternative options in proceeding with a 5, 6, 7, 8 plan. I personally don't think that that's necessarily for immediate discussion, but as we move down the road, potentially beyond an operating levy, I do think there's some things we need to look at, whether it's looking down the road of in the future, putting a bond back up and seeing if that's something that our community would support, whether it's something similar to what we had or something different. I think the other thing that we need to explore as well is looking at our student enrollment and our building's capacity to handle that decreasing enrollment years down the road with the yellow plan. One thing that we have heard in terms of feedback is we have been working on the yellow plan for many years, and as we had worked on that and had community meetings, that plan was selected because of the support that was out there to proceed with that model. Also, I think it's important to address feedback that I've heard, especially from our Claggett families, and the need to take a look at Claggett, especially the situation with the trailers that are over there. But again, I think those are for future conversations. So the present focus must be on operational funds to continue to provide high levels of academic programming for students. So right now, the number one focus is making sure that our students are getting the highest level of academics possible within the classrooms. So then the board had discussed, we had presented multiple options or scenarios with millage and settled on 3 general options, which I'm going to go through right now. The first option was a 7.5 mil operating levy. I do want to point out that all 3 of these options that the board seemed to settle on with administration at the work session did entail some level of permanent reductions moving forward. 7.5 mil operating levy was the one that we explored and discussed that had the least amount of permanent reductions, and it was somewhere between $8 to $10 million in permanent reductions. The cost to the taxpayers is approximately $263 per 100,000 of auditor's total value. And again, these are mandated reductions, and the reductions are due to the loss of collection time. Some added information from the work session, a little more detail, and I'm not prepared at this time to get down into specifics, but more specific generalities, if that makes any sense, of what the reductions would look like. These reductions would be occurring during the 24-25 school year, and they would likely be primarily personnel-based, and they would be impacting administration, certified staff, and classified staff. So they would be felt across the board in the district. The reductions would be dispersed across all buildings and departments in the district and would be determined by student enrollment, program requirements, and service requirements. That really is a strategic move to disperse them across the district. The goal with these reductions would be to do our best to keep current programming intact. So to use a reduction model of across the district is using a surgical approach in assessing where we can make reductions across the board rather than making whole sweeping reductions of eliminating whole programs. And that's in an attempt to have less of an impact overall on our offerings to our students. Now, what this model would mean is the likely increase of class sizes in some areas throughout the district. I wouldn't anticipate that it would be a dramatic increase in class sizes, but it would be an increase in class sizes. And we would likely see areas where we may see some electives not being offered that we currently offer. And what I mean by that is currently we will run some classes, whether at the middle school or the high school, with lower enrollment, with maybe 15 students, where under the situation moving into next year, we won't do that. Because we'll be consolidating our resources in order to save finances. Redistricting will be occurring during the 24-25 school year at the elementary levels. The redistricting is actually going to assist us with these reductions. And the reason why is because the redistricting allows us to consolidate both with personnel as well as with programming because we're reducing the personnel positions as well as the programming into less buildings. As we're going through the redistricting process, the goal will be to identify areas where we can make reductions. Again, strategically and surgically, and try and do it in a fashion that is least impactful on the classrooms. In addition to that, our goal is to do it every way possible through attrition. And through attrition, I mean through retirements, or through natural reductions, whether it's through the transferring of a position to elsewhere in the district, for it could be a teacher who has multiple certifications, or it could be through an individual who resigns from a position. So there's multiple ways we can do that through attrition. We are going to have to spend quite a bit of time as we go through the redistricting process to really identify those positions in order to do that. I can't sit here today and guarantee that there would be no reductions in force through this process with the 7.5. However, I do feel like we will be able to minimize those through this process. We have already had some preliminary discussions in informally trying to identify a few of those positions of individuals that we already know that are retiring, and have been already informally been able to identify probably 4 or 5 positions where we feel we probably through attrition could make some of those reductions. So as we more formally look into this, I feel confident that we'll be able to identify more of those. I also want to point out to the board that our original plan, if the levy were to pass, was not to make those reductions and to maintain current staffing as we redistricted, and then use attrition over time to make those changes. We are now shifting course because of the levy failure. The second option is a 7.0 mil operating levy. With a 7.0 mil operating levy, we would be looking at somewhere between $10 to $12 million in permanent reductions over the 4 years, which would begin next year. The cost to the taxpayer would be approximately $245 per 100,000 of auditors' assessed value. And again, this is due to the loss of collection of a year. In terms of the reductions, the initial reductions would occur similar to the 7.5 mil levy. So the approach initially would be exactly the same as I just explained. We would need to look at additional deeper reductions in addition, because we would be looking at several million more dollars that we would have to reduce from the budget. So those would have to go beyond through those attritions, and we would start having to look into reductions in some of the programming. And I'm not saying these would be reduced, I'm saying these are examples of things we would be exploring that could be reduced. So looking at reductions in elective courses at the high school and middle schools, reduction in counseling and psychology services, reductions in our teacher curriculum coaches, which are currently teachers on assignment, that go into our buildings and work with our teachers to guide them in the implementation of curriculum. And right now we offer gifted services across the district that's quite a bit beyond state minimum requirements. So we'd likely be looking at a reduction in gifted services as well. With a 6.5 mil operating levy, which is the third option that the board had been looking at, we would be looking at a much more significant permanent reduction to the district, 13 to 15 million. The cost to taxpayers per 100,000 would be approximately $228. And again, for the same purposes. One thing that is important to point out here is because of the much larger amount of reductions, we would likely be looking at the reduction or elimination of major programming heading into next school year if we went the 6.5 mil route, just in order to be able to make that level of cuts. And again, those are permanent cuts. And again, with the 6.5, the initial approach would be the same as the 7.5 I explained. When I'm talking about the elimination of programs or the reduction of entire programs, and again, I'm not saying that these are the programs that would be eliminated. I'm saying these are the ones we would be exploring but it's looking at the elimination of teaming at the middle schools. It's looking at the elimination of all-day kindergarten. It's looking at reducing busing to the state minimum. It's increasing pay to participate fees back up to the $636 level. And again, we haven't had the time to really dig into these, but it's these kinds of reductions that offer a lot of money back to the district. And just some examples, eliminating something like teaming is approximately 12 to 13 teaching positions and 6 classified aid positions. When you're talking about eliminating something like all-day kindergarten, it's the elimination of teaching positions, and I don't have the exact number, but you're going back to part-time kindergarten. You're also requiring parents to pay a tuition for all-day kindergarten. When you're looking at reduction of busing to state minimum, in order to get money back to the district, I'm not sure I would advocate to just get rid of high school busing. To get dollars back to the district to make up for the shortcoming, you really need to go out to the 2-mile radius in addition to the high school in order to really be able to eliminate the buses that you have out on the road. And then pay to participate fees. Again, it's putting the cost of the athletic programming back on families rather than the district. And I know this is often a topic of conversation. We currently do charge pay to participate fees, but those pay to participate fees really cover a very small fraction of the costs to run our athletic programs. The other conversation out of the work session is a continuous versus an emergency levy, and which is the right direction to go for our school district. And this is not an easy decision. They are two different things. Historically, our school district has not gone with emergency levies. We did have recently an emergency levy, which our community voted to transition to a continuous levy back in 2018. We currently don't have any emergency levies on the ballot. But there are some things that the board as well as the community needs to think about because there's advantages and disadvantages to both. A continuous levy allows the district to provide consistent academic programming. And what I mean by that is because it provides long-term financial stability. And it's because the district doesn't have to go back to the voters repeatedly to renew those levies. And the challenge with a levy that is not continuous is that a non-continuous levy, if it fails, it's not that the district isn't just getting money, they're losing money. So it goes into an immediate cut situation, not where we're at right now, where we're projecting what might happen. You're in an immediate situation of it is happening, if that makes sense. With an emergency levy, consideration is the time frame. It can span anywhere between 5 and 10 years. I did mention this at the work session that if an emergency levy was selected, I would strongly urge the board to go longer term, simply because we do know that no matter which levy we go with, we are in a situation where we're looking at needing additional funds in 5 years. And I think we can speak from experience that asking the community to pass 2 levies at the same time is a big ask. So we want to avoid that situation down the road. Downside to emergency is that you are on the ballot more often. So We really, as a district, are not on the ballot very often, especially if you compare us to many of our surrounding districts who are regularly on the ballot. Dave and I were actually just talking this afternoon, and since 1976, Medina City Schools has actually only had 9 levies on the ballot that they're paying for. Yeah, so over that span period, that really isn't many levies, in my opinion, that have been on the ballot. I think there's many districts who have had that many on the ballot probably in the last handful of years. So we don't regularly go back to the community and ask for money. The other challenge, which I already mentioned, is if it doesn't pass, you actually lose money. So your budget goes backwards. I think an advantage that community members have shared with us is they feel like it provides a sense of accountability that the community members can have for the district. We definitely have had community members that have made that very clear. And I think that's important to some people. The last piece that I wanted to share with the board as well as with the community, and we did share this at the work session, but I wanted to put it back out there because it does show our need to go back on the ballot with any 3 of these levies in 5 years, and I want to make sure we're being upfront. When we put the last levy on the ballot, we had said that we would not go out and ask for new money until we needed it. So I want to continue to operate with that philosophy and be very upfront with what we're looking at with these levies now. And that's also why we're in the situation we're in now, where we're already talking cuts, because we waited until we really needed the money to go out. What I did is I pulled out just the millage that we seem to be considering, and I only pulled it out with the reductions. So if you look at the dollar amounts in the end balances, you can see that whether it's 6.5 to 7.5, with the end balances in 27-28, we are still seeing the need for additional funds. With the 6.5, even with the dramatic cuts that need to be made, we're in a very difficult situation. And we did have a meeting last week with the Finance Committee, and I think we talked about this at the work session last week too. But ideally, you want to have approximately $15 million in our account to be able to cover the appropriate number of payrolls in the district. And I know these are big dollar amounts to take in, but our district is a large business, and we operate off of an approximately $100 million budget. And this is just a visual, same thing I just showed you, just in a bar graph visual. And I don't even know if I can do it with this, but we do have, Dave pulled language for first reading resolutions. Again, we're on a short timeline, so the board, if we're going to put something up in March, we need to make a decision about passing one of these resolutions either tonight, and if a decision isn't made tonight, I think we need to discuss scheduling a special board meeting within the next week to pass one of these resolutions. But there's 2 resolutions here that we've got examples of with fill in the blanks. One is for a continuous operating levy, and one is for an emergency. And at this time, I want to offer any conversation or questions for the board.
Thanks, Aaron. One thing I just want to mention, I know we spoke a lot last Wednesday at the work session, and I know every board member has been trying to gather feedback from the community. Honestly, we received very little feedback. We implored the community last week to contact us, and I think we got 3 emails and a letter. So I know board members were reaching out over the weekend, talking to voters to garnish some feedback, because a couple things. So as Aaron mentioned, we said that we would not go out to voters and ask for more money until we needed it. And now we need it. We had met with community members I've been on the board 8 years. We've been meeting all that time to discuss with community members what programs they wanted to see. We had surveys, we had community meetings, and these programs that Aaron mentioned could be potential cuts. We didn't really get into that on Wednesday, that could happen with a 7 mil or 6.5 mil. But those were all programs that we've implemented in the last 8 years based on community and student feedback. I think that Medina has a history of expecting more from their district than what the state minimum is. And we have tried to fulfill that. And I think we've done speaking, personally, a pretty good job of that. We heard stories at our curriculum committee today from parents who sit on that committee, success stories of their students, what they've learned in their PLTW classes, how they were able to transition smoothly to college because of the AP classes that they've had. So we're seeing better test scores, our state report cards. So these things are paying off. And to me, that's how we're accountable to our voters. Our financial statements are available every month. Mr. Chambers presents them every month. They are on our website every month. And we don't produce widgets. We've said that all the time. We educate kids. And seeing how our kids are being successful, I think that's how we're accountable to our community. I don't think it's fair to our kids to hold them hostage. So I think that as a board, we've been tasked with being fiscally responsible, and we've been tasked for doing what is best for kids. And if we can avoid cutting these programs that have taken 8 years to implement with the funds that we've had without asking for any more money, I think that's what we need to pursue. I think that we've heard the community, we're listening to them, we are making those cuts, $10, $12 million of cuts where we can, and if we can do that without cutting programming, and also being able to ask for a continuous levy where that helps us have some financial stability and plan our programs, I think that's what's best for kids. But I would like to hear from the other board members.
I wanted to comment as well, but can you go back to that, the one before that? Before that. So 27, 28. I don't understand what those numbers are. Is that our end of year?
The end of year balance.
Or end of year balance?
Correct. That's with cuts implemented.
And to make payroll, you said we need around the $15 million?
That is with the reductions that Aaron was mentioning. That is also with the levy itself. So you're looking at a 6.5 mil levy, a 7 mil levy, and a 7.5 mil levy. And what we've always stated, not only in the finance committee, but also here, is we look to have a balance, ending balance in the fiscal year between $15 and $20 million, so that we could make payroll for at least the first month and a half. So it's a lot of money going out every 2 weeks. So.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was, Dave did a really good job in the finance committee explaining all of this, not only having them balance at the end of the year for the 3 to 4 payrolls or whatever that works out, but also having a buffer for things that you need to fix, say an elevator. You have to fix the elevator. You can't not fix it. Or, things that come up. But as he explained, for a district our size, that's a good number to have at the end of the year. There are districts that run at 0, but then if you get a delay in getting revenue in from the property taxes, then you're in dire straits because you can't pay your bills. Plus also, what else did you mention? Accounts payable, or no?
We basically mentioned that did not include any payment to vendors at all.
Right.
So,
yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
no problem.
So, and on seeing how successful our children have been, I've spoken of it many times in the last 2 years, and I'm going to continue to speak of it, but I don't have to look any farther than my own sons and how well that they've done once they've left Medina to go on to Ashland and OSU, and their friends, and how successful they have been in all of the opportunities that they've had through AP and CCP and all kinds of electives that they've thoroughly enjoyed that helped enrich their schooling. And I think that's very important for us to continue for that next generation. Because even though my kids are out, I want that for Joe's kids and anybody else's kids that are coming along. So I think that's very important.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that I want to hit on real quick. Looking at those numbers, right, you see there's 14 million in 2027, 2028 left in the bank account at the end of the year. As Mr. Sable said, we are a $100 million functioning district, essentially. That includes all of our programs, all of the people we employ, anything extracurricular or outside of the day-to-day function. That's the number that you put on it to get a school, to have a community that has as much pride in the district as it does. We talked at the beginning of the year about, I forget what the slogan on the shirts were. The black shirts.
There we go, Ron.
Yeah, evolving for the future. Ron has it on his shirt right now. It's very hard to stand by those words if we're functioning with two hands behind our back, right? We can't really evolve for the future. We're scrapping to just get by on the day-to-day right now. And that's something, you know, I talked about it the first board meeting too of the year, that when I came into the district, and I even campaigned on it when I was running, I wanted to come in and see all the great things and all the opportunities, and the way that we set our kids up for success, not only in college or trade school or directly after into a career, but for life, right? And it's great what we do now, but I wanted to leave it better than where it was when I came into the district. And I'm still striving for it. I'm still looking for it, and I hope that we can agree as a board and kind of steer the ship through the storm, right? It's a little rough patch right now, and we need to do what we planned on doing, hopefully at the end of our terms when we're done. Like Ron, you know, it's a rough thing to leave the board on, but you know, you've done so many good things, right? The essay contest, you just got glorified and told that, you know, hey, thank you, Ron, you know, you started this. Like, okay, all right, a joint effort then. You know, you're leaving it better than you found it, and I think we all strive for that. And that's really what I hope we can do. Either tonight, if we get the agreement, or sometime this week at a special meeting.
Mr. Nichols, are you willing to share what you are thinking right now, so we can get an idea of where we're at, see if it's a decision we can make this evening?
Yeah, so you're gonna make me talk a little bit longer. So right now in my mindset, it's the 7.5 mils with reductions. I hate to create job loss, hopefully mostly, if not all, through attrition. But we have to do something to make sure the district can still move forward and function. In addition to that, the decision between continuous or emergency. I mentioned in the work session that I would love to sit here and be happy with a 10-year emergency, and hope to try again in the future to make it a continuous levy. I think doing the thing that's right for the kids, right for the district, right for the community, is to go forward with the continuous now. I don't know how many terms I'll have on here. I don't know if I'll be here 10 years later, but I also don't want to put somebody else in a tough position and leave them with dealing with this once the levy is due. If that's a situation that we have to come to at a future date and make that decision, great. But right now I'm thinking continuous.
I was going to make a comment.
Yep, please.
So at the work session, I took a hard line approach because I didn't think that we should ask for more from what we asked 2 weeks ago. I didn't think that the people would accept that. 4 months later, we're asking for more money. And since the election, I've talked to a lot of people, a lot more than normal, actually. And I told Mrs. Parkhurst this. A lot of people told me that they thought the levy 2 weeks ago was too expensive. They didn't think that we were reciprocating by feeling the pain. I heard somebody mention that to me, meaning we're just asking and we're not giving up anything. They didn't like that there were two issues on the ballot, the operating levy and the bond, and a lot of them didn't understand that we have already gone 10 years without any new money. And now we're in a position as we get into 2024, we're going to be going into 11 years without any new money. So I tried to talk more, I guess. Sometimes sometimes I'm running or I'm working out and I get stopped and I try to keep my boundaries. But I didn't this time. I did more talking. And what Mr. Sable said, everybody needs to really understand, they're not threats. He's not threatening anybody. He's not threatening the community. It's just the fact of it's reality. This is the situation that we're in. And we need to put a plan together to work out of it. And he's just informing everybody of that plan. And I give him a lot of credit for coming up with these options. So with that said, we've taken one issue off the ballot. He's come up with a plan for $8 to $10 million in cuts with that 7.5 mil levy. And I want this thing, I'm not going to be here like Joe mentioned, and I want this thing to pass in March. I don't want it to go to November. I want it to pass in March. And there are a lot of people in this room, administrators, that have been doing this for a long time, a lot longer than I've been around. And I have to trust this expertise, that this is the plan that they believe will get this thing passed. And so I'm going to put my faith in that trust. I'm going to put my faith in these folks and believe that. And so when I started on the board and I had to vote for something, I always said, and I think I mentioned it to Mrs. Parkhurst, 2 things I have to check the box for me to vote yes. One is it has to come from my heart, and the second thing is it has to be good for kids. And so both of these boxes are checked so that we can get this thing passed. So I'm okay with the 7.5, right? 7.5 mil. And a lot of people told me they didn't like the continuous. That was more of a mixed bag, though. Some people didn't have a problem with that. So that was kind of, but I would go, because of the stability that it offers the district, I would go with the continuous to, and support that. But the bottom line is, I just think it's good for kids. This is the best option. And I'm doubling up my fingers crossed that we can get this thing passed in March. So that's where I'm at.
Can I go back and add some? I didn't explicitly state this, but and I'm going to talk about it a little bit in the board. But this Saturday, I was out with our bus drivers, and I saw the community come out, and I saw lots of people come into the community to the point where they were mobbing us with the bus. Our schools are the heart and soul of this community, or a huge part of it. And I want it to stay that way. I still participate with some of our kids through the scouting program, but the schools are the heart and soul of this community, and I saw it this weekend, and I saw it from our bus drivers and the people that rode the bus. And I think for long term and to keep the programming that we've wanted for so long, I think a 7.5 mil continuous is the way to go. I didn't explicitly state it earlier, but I did want to do that. So thank you for that.
I mean, I have made a lot of phone calls and emails and texts to different people through the community. And trust me when I say every board member has taken all this time from last Wednesday to try to get information from the voters. One thing that kind of struck me, and I don't know why, but I thought they would know, voters think that when we go out and ask for the 7.5 mil, that as more houses are built, we're going to get more money. And I tried to explain to them, whatever amount of money 7.5 mils raises is all we're ever going to get from this levy. And that, I think, is a very important thing to note. Some people, one person said to me, well, with vouchers, public schools are going to be dead pretty soon. I know that's probably the plan in Columbus, but the bottom line is private schools, charter schools, all the schools where you can get a voucher, they do not have to take anyone with special needs, and that is what public schools do. And they help those kids, but they also help the kids that come here to realize that everybody is different, but they're the same and they're special. And I think that is one thing that Medina has always done, that we've done such a nice job of making sure that every student and every day that they are treated with respect. I am wholeheartedly behind 7.5 and making it a continuous.
I'd like to thank the board members for the feedback. To reiterate what Jean said, we have each of us have taken a lot of time the last 5 days. We do not take this lightly. These are very hard decisions we have to make. These are very challenging conversations that we have to have. So I appreciate everyone's hard work. I appreciate the administration putting some plans together for us to consider. So after hearing everyone, I would like to make a motion to amend the consent agenda. And I'd like to, if I can get a second, please.
I'll give you a second on that.
Thank you, Mr. West. And now I would like to make a motion to add an item to the agenda for consideration. It's a resolution of necessity to levy an additional tax in excess of the 10 mil limitation as item G1.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols.
Do we have to vote on those two motions separately?
We do.
Okay, just wondered.
Are you gonna read it?
Procedurally, we have to vote on those two motions separately, and then when we come to, that's an additional action item. So we will vote on it as action item G after public comment. We don't usually do things like this.
Okay, we have a motion to add resolution of necessity to levy an additional tax in excess of the 10 mil limit to item G1. After.
When you're ready to call roll, please, Mr. Chambers.
Yes. Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
And Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Thank you. And now we have our motion to amend the consent agenda. Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
And Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. If there's nothing else on that for right now, I believe we can move on to Mr. Chambers, Treasurer's discussion items when he's ready.
Sir, please, the board. Have the summary of October financials. The district bank balance decreased $9.8 million in October to $69,300,039. This is $1.3 million above last year at this time. The 5-year forecasted revenues were above last October by $4.5 million. Real property, personal property, state foundation, property tax allocation, and other revenues account for this increase. The 5-year forecasted expenditures were below last October by $3.5 million. Personal services, benefits, and other account for this decrease. If you recall, with personal services, we have 27 pays this year as opposed to 26. The sales tax fund balance increased to $4.5 million. The district spent approximately $234,000 in October with major expenditures on the scoreboards and roof replacement. And the district received payments from the city and boosters totaling $45,800. The Recreation Center capital fund balance decreased to negative $345,000. The district spent $187,000 in October on the expansion project and natatorium upgrade project. The city has paid $3,061, and all further payments will be deposited into this fund. The district has received $145,000 in investment income for October. The total collected for the current fiscal year is approximately $281,000 above last year at this time. And finally, the district has forecasted funds true days cash estimated to be 171 days. This is down from September by 6 days and below last year by 12.5 days. Questions on the finances?
I know we ask you every month when the city's going to reimburse us. I've been pretty patient, but now I'm starting to get a little nervous.
Don't be nervous. I asked Ryan's secretary when invoicing went out. The invoicing for the rec center is what you're talking about, correct? The invoicing for the rec center went out over the past 2 weeks because, well, for portions of it, because we are waiting for the natatorium to be completed, and we are also waiting for the expansion project. The expansion project still has some final checklists to go. The natatorium project just completed this past week. So invoices are going out now to the city. Yep.
Just, if I may, I want to this is just for our voters and our citizens in our district, that if anybody's, I've been asked recently a couple times, what about, our financial reports for each month? And I've told them that it's published every month at every regular board meeting by Mr. Chambers, and that's what, just a portion of what you went over. So if anybody is out there looking for it, it's there every month. And Mr. Chambers does a great job of putting that all together to the tune of somewhere around 80 to 85 pages a month, something like that, and that's everything. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. We have supplementals to the permanent appropriations. We have Root Media Center and Claggett Media Center are having their book fairs. This is new for Root. They didn't have a book fair last year. Claggett had a book fair, and Claggett just needs a few more dollars because they took in a few more dollars. So they need a few more dollars that they need to spend on the fair itself. You also have the athletic department asking for monies from the Adams board. From the Adams grant that we did receive here. So we're this wasn't asked for with our permanent appropriations. This is for drug testing. So we are asking the board to provide for the Adams grant. And the other, I forgot about the DC trip. Claggett and Root probably will come back here at the in the spring. Claggett had their DC trip, I believe. And since the all students were attending this year, the amounts were higher than they had anticipated, so we're increasing that for the expenditure of the DC trip. And finally, our ARPSer was approved for carryover, so that's your $1.28 million. Any questions?
None on that. Thank you.
Okay. Now I'm going to do something different. I've been talking about, I think this is my 10th five-year forecast, if that makes sense. I used to start out by saying school districts are the only taxing entity in the state that has to produce a 5-year forecast. Even the state only produces a 2-year budget. I know you guys don't like hearing about it, so I'm just going to see if I could show you what we're talking about here. The current forecast, the projected beginning balance is roughly $39 million. The projected ending balance is $30 million for the current fiscal year. What we're looking at in revenue is $85 million, and we're looking at $94 million in expenditure. Now this, as I've said before, the district has been spending down their monies, spending down their balances. We've been doing this for a number of years, so we wouldn't come back to the taxpayers. What has occurred, we said we would come back to the taxpayers when money is needed. So you could see, again, we're estimating to spend down our monies itself. Now this is important here because this shows you exactly where our monies are coming from. 67% of our revenues are coming from local taxpayers. That includes businesses, both industrial and commercial, and residential. We also have monies coming from our public utilities, which are a minor portion of what we receive. We have 28% of the monies coming from the state. $17 million is coming from the Fair School Funding Plan. We have roughly $800,000 coming from the wellness that was placed into the budget, and then we also have what is the state says is their portion. The state provides local taxpayers a rollback and homestead reductions, and they make school districts and other taxing entities whole. Well, they did that up until, I want to say 2013, and after 2000, with the April levy of 2013, it was the last one that you could collect rollbacks on. The November levy of 2013, we could not collect rollback monies on, so we are collecting homestead monies on. And that is the substitute levy that is now in our possession.
So, Mr. Chambers, can you explain to the community that if we're not collecting our rollback, does that mean we have?
That means the taxpayers are paying the rollback for that levy. So.
Mr. Chambers, one more thing on that last chart. Someone mentioned earlier today too, that I was speaking to about lottery money. Would that be in that little gray slice of all of the revenue?
No, lottery money is part of that state funding.
Thank you.
Yeah, what happens is when the lotteries were first put out there, it was supposed to be the be-all, end-all for all school districts. I forget the representative out of Parma who pushed for the lotteries, and yes, at the time, the thought was that these would be separated out specifically for schools. And I think he thought that the monies that were going to schools at that time would continue to go to schools at that time. When the state was in a pinch, they decided that, well, we have these lottery funds out here for the schools. We'll just plow that in and substitute what the schools are getting and then take that money and use it for themselves. Well, for other purposes. I shouldn't say themselves. It's always for other purposes. So, yes, school funding includes lottery monies. How much of that is the lottery money and how much is additional funding, I can't tell you at this point.
What about casino money?
Casino monies are also part of that 28%. That is separate, unlike the lottery monies, that is separate monies that are on top. Last year, the district received $300,000 for casino revenue.
Mr. Chambers, you might have mentioned this, and I missed it. Is the sales tax part of that gray?
The forecasted monies do not include sales tax at all. This only includes the general fund and the substitute levy. Okay, here's another view of, but it also includes over the life of the forecast itself. You could see the 2023, which was last year, so that's our base year for revenue sources. If you look out to 2028, you could see the percentage isn't moving anywhere. The percentages are the two graphs on your left, really. The monies that, the increases that you see are based on more revenues coming in from the property taxpayers, a little more revenues coming in from the state, and then we're also projecting out more revenues coming in from the investments, since investments are now up to 5.5% as opposed to where they were in 2023 at 0.5%.
And Mr. Chambers, the state funding, they determine that percentage of what they're going to give us because we are considered a wealthy district, correct? And that is why they fund us at the level that they do?
The state percentage of funding for the school district is roughly 30% of what the state says they're funding for schools. They feel that we are wealthy enough where our local taxpayers make up the difference between the $8,000+ per student that they are funding. So we're receiving roughly $1,400 per student from the state, and the local taxpayers are supposed to make up the difference. So.
And I think another real important thing to emphasize here, and we talked about this at the Finance Committee last week, and Jean had mentioned this earlier this evening, the two first bars with the real estate tax, which is what our millage gets us. You see between 2023 and 2028, it's the same. So when a levy goes on the ballot, no matter what happens with property taxes, it stays the same.
Right, an increase in people's property taxes does not mean we are getting more money. Right. We do not.
I believe that's my next slide. Okay. The bars on the left, I'll talk about the bars and not the graph because people don't, or not the chart because people don't like looking at numbers. The bars on the left are the voted millage. So when you went to the ballot box back in 76 or before, you voted in 30.1 mils. So that, as I say, that was 76 and before. So whatever was voted in 1950, up to 1976, they were all added together. It totaled 30.1 mils. What we're getting from that right now is 3.14 mils from residential property taxpayers. We have, and Aaron mentioned this, we have 9 levies that we're receiving monies for. And you can see all the boxes that are blue are much higher than those that are orange. Orange is what we're actually receiving from. If you go to 18, that is the substitute levy. Well, let me jump back some. All those levies go down to the state. The state then applies a reduction factor to it. So when valuations go up, the reduction factor also goes up. And what happens is the reduction factor is then applied to the millage and reduces the millage. So that's why we're down to 3.14 mils on 30.1 mils. If you go out to 2018, that is the substitute levy. The substitute levy is placed out there by the county auditor. The county auditor is obligated to reduce the tax rate as the valuation goes up. And that's why you see them both level there. Now, the last one there is the bond, and also that's at the county auditor's purview. And the county auditor receives the debt schedule from the school district, and so they place the principal and interest, and that is what the tax millage is out there for the bond itself. And that's why you see both the reduction factor, or the tax rate, and the effective rate being the same as well. But here's a good example of, as your valuations go up, the school district is not receiving any more monies. The monies stay the same, but the tax rate goes down. It's called the effective rate. Ron, you knew about this when you were in the Finance Committee. Would you like to join it again? I'm trying to get him, since he's leaving, I'm trying to get him on any committee I could get him on. So.
I do appreciate this graphic. I believe it's January of each year we approve these effective rates, don't we? At the organizational meeting?
Yeah, it's at the, well,
Or
it's
tax
either
hearing.
in December or January, yes.
Right. So I do appreciate, usually, yeah, it's just a list of numbers. I do appreciate the graphic. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, this shows you the cost per pupil per day. You could see that the graph itself is made a little bit different because this one just shows what the residential property taxpayers are paying. It doesn't include the commercial industrial. That's all part of the orange portion of the pie chart. The residential property taxpayers in Medina are simply paying 43% of anything that goes that is expensed here by the district. The businesses, commercial, industrial, the public utilities, the state, they pay 57% of the portion. So if you take that into account, our residents do pay a lot for our students. Now here are the expenditures. You can see we have $80,000 in personnel costs, or sorry, $80 million in personnel costs. That's roughly 85%. As was stated before, we are a industry that we're in the top 10 in the county, where I think we have more staff than any other industry in the county, possibly. But in the school district itself, we are probably the only business that deals strictly with personnel. And that's why 85% of our costs are to personnel. We don't create a product. The product that we create walks out our door every day and says hello to mom and dad. They come back every day and say hello to us. So there is no cost, hardly any cost for supplies, hardly any cost for equipment, hardly any cost for materials. That's our industry. That's not a business model that you want to be under, but it's our business model.
And I think it's important to note, like you said as well, we are a big employer in the community.
Top 10 employer.
Right.
And I think if you look at any school district in the state, they are in the top 10, top 20 of their communities as well. Okay, now this is our forecast. This is the bottom line of our forecast for revenues and expenditures. So if you look at the forecast, we have 23 actual. You could see a blip there in 25. That's the 24-25 year. That's because on our forecast, the projection that I had in my forecast before you guys decided to add anything was 7.5 mils. So you could see the blip in 25. We would receive the full amount in 26 fiscal year because between January and June, we only receive roughly half a levy amount. Our fiscal year ends in June, so the next fiscal year, 25-26, would be when we receive the full levy amount. And even with 7.5, I cannot project reductions at all, and I didn't with the forecast. I know that now the board is looking at reductions. I know Mr. Sable is looking at reductions, but with the creation of the forecast, reductions were not placed in there at all. So you could see without reductions, we would still be deficit spending. That's why we would be looking for reductions. Our projected balance, as was on, I believe, Mr. Sable's slide before, we're looking at roughly $7 million to end the fiscal year 27-28. And here's our annual change. It looks like a big change in revenue, but if you read the numbers, it's only going from historical annual revenue of 1.14% increase to 1.2% increase. That includes possible levy here. And that's why you see on the bottom there, revenue is projected to change an average of 4.4% annually with the levy. Historically, on our expenditures, it's a little bit different. We're going from 3.75% to 3.84%. This change is if no reductions are placed out there. So that's what I wanted to make sure you all know before this. And finally, this is where we would be if we weren't looking at the levy itself. I always speak of where we are on a monthly basis of true days cash. I said we were at 171 days. At the end of the year, our true days cash is always lowest in December and lowest in June. So when they're projecting 119, that would be what we'd be looking at to end this fiscal year, 61 next fiscal year. The negative projections are based on if no levy passes. We knew that 25, 26 would be a time where we would be looking at cash and desperate need for cash. So.
Now, Mr. Chambers, at the work session last week, you also mentioned if we were in negative, that could, when you submit the forecast, fiscal caution, correct? That's still the case because...
Ryan, could you put on the last page of the I forget what it's called. My system's out right here, so not that. Go to the next one. Nope. Thank you. Last page of that one. No, go to your downloads. It's in there. Nope, up there. Thank you. Thank you, Craig. Ryan wasn't working there, I noticed. Go to forecast report, go to the last page of the report. Oh, just pan out over to your right here. Pan out. Thank you. Okay, here's what Ms. Parkhurst was talking about. Okay, what Ms. Parkhurst was talking about, I pointed this out the other day. The state will be looking at this line or this line, one of the two, whichever one they want to look at. But they always look out 3 years. And if they look out 3 years and they see a negative, they're going to come back to Mr. Sable and myself and say, hey, why are you in the negative? And we're going to, we show them the forecast and they're going to come back with, okay, we need you to fix this negative. Well, the only way you could fix the negative is by making reductions, and we know that already. But I can't project reductions that aren't there. I can't go ahead and project reductions. The board is just taking action today on a possible levy, so I can't project reductions right now. They're also going to, because we are in the negative here, they're going to place us in what is known as fiscal caution. The state has 3 different versions here: fiscal caution, fiscal watch, and fiscal emergency. Now, when they put you in fiscal caution, it's just a good, conversation between superintendent, the treasurer, and the Department of Ed. When you're in fiscal watch, it's a good conversation, but they also don't trust you. And they bring in their auditor on a monthly basis to audit your books. And when you're placed in fiscal emergency, you as board members act, but then you have, there legislation going on right now that'll got rid of it. You as board members will act, but there's, in the past, they brought in outside board members to take over the district. Well, I believe that was either in legislation right now or pass through legislation that will no longer occur. So you as board members will act during any fiscal emergency. The whole idea is you got to make cuts to state minimum for everything. You have to dissolve programming. You gotta reduce personnel until you could get back into the black. So that's where we're looking at right here. This is going to be submitted to the state, and we're going to be looking at a letter from the state or a telephone call from the state saying, what are you going to do? So.
But I think you mentioned in the fiscal committee meeting, when generally speaking, whenever any district anywhere is going for, I think it's important to note when you're asking for a levy that this is not an uncommon thing at this point.
It's not uncommon. You do hear about the state declaring fiscal caution for some earlier than others. At times, as I say, the first conversation had, they may look at that and say, okay, we're not going to declare. But it's out there for them to declare right now. Correct.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Chambers regarding those items?
Dave, just one that, can you go back to that, or is that too hard? Oh, gotcha. That blue line, so you forecasted that without the levy, right?
Correct.
That's blue, right?
Yeah, if you look, this is all forecasted without the levy. The levy is forecasted right here.
Okay, but without the levy, when's the first year we're negative?
First year negative?
Yeah, I can't.
We're looking at, if you pull this down, I believe it's 25, 26.
Okay.
Because 26, 27, 27, 28. So it's 25, 26.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other questions for Mr. Chambers, we'll move on to board communication. I'm going to implore the board to kind of keep it brief because my bedtime's in about 25 minutes, if possible. Thank you.
Now, I promise I'll try to keep it brief. Couple cool things. One, had that pleasure of working with one of our high school seniors. They're doing, I believe it's called the CEO program. He's been in for almost 40 hours over at Plastipac with our engineering, our project engineers, and kind of shadowing us. And today was my time to sit down with him. Great young man looking at engineering, and it was nice that we can get some high schoolers out into businesses in the district. So that's a real plus. Second, I spoke earlier about the schools being the heart of the city and the town. It was no bigger portion than this past Saturday. Got to ride our school bus that was all lit up in the candlelight parade. And I want to say thanks to the 4 bus drivers. There was 4 bus drivers that were there. They decorated the bus. They drove it from our transportation department. They did this all on their own time, their own money, getting the lights. And we had 3 elves walking alongside the bus the whole way, although one was on a skateboard with rockets. So, but when you look at the people that we have in our district, that's the epitome of them. They did this on their own. They were passing out candy that they bought themselves. So we just have great people. And it was a pleasure to get to talk to them a little bit. They were excited because their students that they carried, oh, hi, Mr. So-and-so, hi, Mrs. So-and-so. They were so excited to see their bus drivers in the parade. So that was great. Got to attend OSBA, the Ohio State School Board Conference again this year for the 3rd time. Sat through a lot of great presentations and whatnot, so that was really good. A shout out to the boys cross country team for competing at the state meet again this year. Coach Dudak was kind enough to send me their summary. They went into the state meet seated 20th out of, I think, 28 teams, and they finished 6th. That was the highest finish since, I think, 2018 when they finished 3rd. And as Coach Dudak pointed out, they were closer to 3rd place than they were 7th. So the boys had the best races of the year. And when you looked from 1,600 meters till the finish, they passed dozens of runners, all 5 of our top ones, to finish 6th. So they were really excited about that. And finally, we had a finance committee meeting this past Thursday, and it was a good meeting. So between that and our discussions here, we've kind of beaten a lot of stuff pretty good. So, but that's about it. So I'm short. That's it.
3 things. Number 1, I just want to congratulate Andrew on his reelection. Congratulate Amy Smoyer on her election to the board. Welcome, Amy. And I also want to thank Mr. Hare, Aaron Hare, for running a great campaign. Even though he wasn't elected, I hope Mr. Hare stays involved with the district. He did a good job with his campaign. Number 2, the marching band was the highlight of that parade, no doubt about it. And number 3, a lot of our student athletes, like Andrew mentioned, teams and individuals had a great postseason and even reaching regional and state competition. But I'm going to defer to Gene because I know Gene's got the rundown. That's all I got.
So a couple things. Ron kind of touched on it. Congrats to Andrew and Amy for getting reelected. Ron, you said that the marching band was the key thing of the parade, but I don't know. I feel like I spooked Andrew when me and my son and wife were sitting there with basically pouches full of candy, and I'm like, yeah. I'm like, Mr. West. He's like, huh? What? Oh, completely threw him off. But other things, had finance committee, kind of went over the things that Mr. Chambers has mentioned and shown just right before our communication. Curriculum committee was kind of going over the conversations about the CKLA and a little bit of levy talk thrown in there. At OSBA, I attended 3 things that I thought were well, I attended more than 3 things, but there were 3 things that were interesting that I figured I'd mention here. So number 1, I attended a meeting with a law firm that was going over kind of navigating levy stuff. Again, it seems like every year things get a little bit different, but seems like they're staying the same for the most part with the restrictions on the district and what the district can do and say and get involved with. That seemed pretty relevant to our situation, so that felt like a good one to be in. The other one was, or another one was language arts that was put on by the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. I'll get there soon. And that really kind of hit home, going back to the curriculum committee, that what we're doing really does feel like the right path, and definitely hits all of that science of reading that they're trying to bring into the schools and establish and help the kids be better readers, better writers, and understanding topics better. Because I know my comprehension is horrible, but you know, if I had CKLA, maybe I'd be a little bit better. And then the last thing that I sat in on was actually Bedford schools were talking about kind of catering to the whole child, not just the academic aspect of it, but also, you know, things that they go through, just growing up, issues that they might have at home, and a bunch of programs that they put on there. And one of the things that they hit on and spent a few minutes on was basically their version of our Zen dens, and I thought that was really cool. And that's something that you do see when you go down there, is there's a little bit of some of those luxuries that we have at Medina that districts are either just now implementing or implemented in the last year or two, and they're so excited about it, and we're like, I sit in those and I'm yeah, we've had that for a while. We've had that for a while, so it's just cool to be a step ahead, especially when it comes to catering the needs of all of our students, not just the academic ones. And I yield my time to Jean.
Thank you.
I know, so much pressure. First of all, the students of the month for the high school, Hallie Dyer and Zachary Kurt, who received the award this month. We had 4 National Merit Commended Scholars: Vivian Liu, Jody Rabung, Zachary Kurt, and Mason Koski. The play that Goes Wrong, I went to see on Friday night. Wonderful production. We have a very talented students, and Mr. Douglas and Mr. Mon do such a great job, and they do like pretty much all the drama stuff, and they do they spend a lot of time. I want to congratulate the rugby girls 7 team. I don't really know what 7, I guess just 7 people play, and they won the state title, and the guys 7 finished second. Boys soccer, the final 4. I went to the county bowling tournament Sunday, and actually I have to tell you, the falling pins were quite relaxing. We ended up finishing 4th. I think we have a lot of young kids, but it was good. The place was packed, so it's really nice. I got to read at Blake to 6- and 7-year-olds about the whale and the snail, and the kids had such great observations, and I know what everyone wants to be when they grow up, and there was not a fireman or a nurse. They wanted to be vets and archaeologists and teachers. And then a couple, must have been the day that we were supposed to vote. 3 of us got to go to the 4th graders and learn about Indians in Ohio and their lives. And then we went through kindergarten, and they were learning how to vote. And I'd like to thank their teachers for allowing us to be part of that. And then I do want to thank Key Club Student Council and National Honor Society for helping the Friends of the Cemetery to pull the flags out for after Veterans Day, and also to plant 600 daffodils around the outside of, I'm not really sure what, it's like a ravine, and they had more than enough, and we were done in about an hour. So I'd like to thank them. That's it.
Thank you. I also had the opportunity to read. I read over at Canada, the 4th grade students, and I think it's great that the district can partner with United Way. As a result, the kids got some books for their classroom as well, so that was nice. I briefly mentioned earlier the curriculum committee met actually today. One of the items on here relates to the CKLA first reading, action item for the first reading of that curriculum, as well as policy committee met. We will meet one more time before the first reading of policies will be put on the agenda for next month. However, there is a resolution, I believe it's action item I2, and that is to, by doing this, we are saying that making the changes to all of our board policies to reflect the name change to Ohio Department of Education Workforce. Otherwise, we would have to go through every single policy where it mentions Ohio Department of Ed and changes. So this resolution covers that for us, just in case anybody wanted to know. So thank you very much. If no one has anything else to add, and I do appreciate everyone's patience this evening. This was a very important meeting. We've had a lot to cover. I know it seems like a marathon. I appreciate everyone for sticking around with us. Now in the agenda is time for public comment. I think we had one person who signed in. If she's still here, Vicki Drewley. As she comes up to the podium, I'm going to read our rules. For public comments, community members wishing to address the board are asked to abide by the following guidelines. Attendees shall register their intention to comment in the public portion of the meeting upon their arrival at the meeting. After those that have registered have spoken, if time allows, the board president will ask for public comment from all other attendees. Mrs. Drewley, please state your name, address, and affiliation. Please keep your comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. No participant may speak more than once in the same topic unless all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard, and all statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No person may address or question board members individually. Thank you.
All right, thank you. My name is Victoria Drewley. I live at 896 Laurel Glens Drive here in Medina. Good evening. On behalf of Kids First Medina, I want to express our understanding of the challenges you face in the aftermath of the recent levy and bond failure. We share in the collective disappointment and recognize the complexities involved in navigating these setbacks. Our commitment to the students of Medina City Schools remains unwavering. A strong school system is fundamental to a strong future for our community as a whole, and we believe that our shared investment in education directly impacts the overall strength and vitality of Medina. We do not envy your situation, faced with the juxtaposition of what is best for our students and the perception of what our community will support. But regardless of the operating levy amount, Kids First Medina advocates for the stability provided by a continuous levy as it ensures funding security for the next 5 to 6 years. We express our reservations about the prospect of an emergency levy as it could as it could necessitate more frequent appeals to voters, potentially jeopardizing the consistency of our programming. We implore our voters to grasp the implications of such a scenario, recognizing that it places Medina City Schools in a position of increased vulnerability. With that said, no matter what you decide, Kids First Medina will follow your lead and trust that you've considered all possible pros and cons, and the measure that the board votes to put on the ballot will become our focus with full support. I hope that our board, our administration, and our staff will do the same. And there's been a lot of talk about hope at the last few board meetings, and I really do think that hope might make the difference in this case, because what I see here tonight, when I look around and I see the number of administrators that are in this room this evening, I've never been in the room with that many of our administrators at one time, so I certainly feel hopeful that we can come together and we can do this next time. So thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. If there's no other comments from anyone, we will move ahead with our action items. Action item G1 is a board action item. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the resolution of necessity to levy an additional tax in excess of the 10 mil limitation. The Board of Education, Medina City School District, Medina County, Ohio School District met in regular session on November 20th at 6 p.m. in the Professional Development Center of the high school with the following members present. I didn't have to read that part. Whereas the amount of taxes which may be raised within the 10 mil limitation will be insufficient to provide an adequate amount for the necessary requirements of the school district. And whereas a resolution declaring the necessity of levying an additional tax outside the 10 mil limitation must be passed and certified to the county auditor of Medina County, Ohio, in order to permit the board to consider the levy of such a tax, and must request that the county auditor certify to the board the current total taxable value of the school district, the estimated property tax revenue that will be produced by such additional tax base on such total taxable value, and the amount of the additional tax expressed in dollars for each $100,000 of the county auditor's appraised value. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education, Medina City School District, Medina County, Ohio, 2/3 of all the members thereof concurring that Section 1, it is necessary to levy an additional tax in excess of the 10 mil limitation for the purpose of paying the current expenses of the school district. Section 2, as authorized by the Ohio Revised Code, Section 5705.21, the question of the operating levy shall be submitted to all of the electors in the entire territory of the school district at the election to be held on March 19th, 2024. All of the territory of the school district is located in Medina County, Ohio. Section 3, the operating levy shall be at a rate not exceeding 7.5 mils for each $1 of taxable value upon the entire territory of the school district for a continuing period of time. Section 4, The operating levy shall include the levy upon the 2024 tax list and duplicate commencing in 2024, first due in calendar year 2025, if approved by a majority of the electors voting thereon. Section 5, the treasurer of the board is directed to promptly certify a copy of this resolution to the county auditor with instructions for the county auditor to certify to the board the current total taxable value of the school district, the estimated property tax revenue rounded to the nearest $1,000 that will be produced by the operating levy based on such taxable value, and the amount of the operating levy expressed in dollars rounded to the nearest dollar for each $100,000 of the county auditor's appraised value. Section 6, it is hereby found and determined that all formal actions of this board concerning and relating to the passage of this resolution were taken in an open meeting of this board, and that all deliberations of this board and any of its committees that resulted in such formal action were in meetings open to the public in compliance with all legal requirements, including Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Ross.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Any questions or comments from the board?
Did you mention it's continuous in there?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I didn't, okay.
Yes, that is section 3. Any other questions or comments? I know we deliberated about this earlier. Mr. Chambers, when you're ready then.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
I'm sorry.
Nope, it's okay.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Chambers, your action items when you're ready.
If it please the board, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the October 23 Treasurers Report. Item 2, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following supplemental to 23-24 permanent appropriations. These were spoken about before. Number 3, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the agreement between Ray and Associates and the Medina City School District to conduct the engagement of agreed-upon procedures related to the Medicaid school program with an estimated cost not to exceed $3,500, $3,750, and $4,000 for the cost report dates ending 23, 24, and 25, respectively. And finally, number 4, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the November 23 5-year forecast and notes to comply with the State of Ohio Department of Education's requirement.
I'd like to make a motion to approve action items by the treasurer H 1 through 4.
Thank you, Ms. Pritchard.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. West. Any questions or comments regarding these action items? Mr. Chambers, just to clarify regarding the Ray and Associates agreement, I understand that is a new agreement for the next 3 years, but this is something that has been performed previously.
Yes, it used to be by a different group that Ray and Associates took over, so they took over their contract with us, and that contract ended this year with the 22 Medicaid cost report that was just submitted to us.
Thank you. If there's no other questions or comments, roll please.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sable.
Action item number 1 is donations. It is recommended that the Board of Education accept the following donations. I'd like to thank Medina Sunrise Rotary for their $1,000 donation to provide school supplies throughout the district. Recommendation number 2, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the resolution to make provisional changes to board policies, administrative guidelines, and forms to comply with House Bill 33, as explained by Board President Parkhurst earlier this evening. Action item number 3, transportation, parental contracts. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the attached parental transportation contracts for the 23-24 school year. This is in lieu of the district providing transportation. Typically, this is cost savings to the district. Action item number 4 is recommended that the Board of Education accept the attached elementary English language arts curriculum for public preview with the intent to recommend for adoption in December 2023 following the preview period as presented at the top of the board meeting. Number 5, it is recommended that the Board of Education accept the following sponsors per the City of Medina, Medina City Schools Recreation Center Sponsorship Agreement. All these sponsorships are for the Medina recreational basketball game days. Number 6, service agreement. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following service agreement. These services are for News to You program. This is for special education programming. This is a contract we have held in the past and is going to the board because it's a 3-year renewal. There are no increases to the amount of this contract, which is impressive. Thank you, Mina. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following I'm reading the same one again. Number 7, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following stipend payments to district teachers who have served as cooperating teachers for students attending Kent State University during the fall 23 semester. Number 8 is field trips. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following overnight field trips in compliance with Policy 2340. We have several field trips here. A few of these are for state competition, which were pre-approved by administration. The others of these are for camps over the winter or into the spring. Number 9 is personnel. It is recommended that the board approve the following personnel recommendations pending completion of all required paperwork per the Director of Human Resources. I do want to point out there are a couple others on here. A recommendation to the Board of Education to approve a food service special event catering rate of $32 an hour for a catering server and cook and 42 hours for a catering manager. This is for outside food services. Typically, these are for outside organizations that come in and hold events at our PAC. This is paid for by those outside services. Also, in order to ensure compliance with an upcoming increase in the Ohio minimum wage, it is recommended that the Board of Education, effective January 1st of 24, approve changes to the positions in bold type on the attached support staff substitute rate sheet, as well as the athletic and PAC worker sheet to comply with the new minimum wages.
Make a motion to approve superintendent's action items.
Thank you, Mr. Ross.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Any questions or comments from the board regarding these action items? Mr. Sable, regarding the rec center sponsorships, I believe the city also has to pass those as well before.
That's correct. Per the rec center agreement, they have to be approved by both the School Board of Education as well as the city.
Thank you. And regarding the field trips, just a general question. The girls and boys rugby, is that a club sport?
Those are club sports, yes.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Mr. Chambers, when you're ready, please.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the last action item is a resolution for an agreement with Fanning and Howie for architectural services for Heritage, for Helping Hands. It's on as a separate voting item because it's not a regular business item. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the Fanning Howie proposal for professional design services for renovating Heritage Elementary School to a preschool space in the amount of $160,000.
I'll make a motion to approve superintendent action item J1.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Any questions or comments from the board?
To just to clarify, this is, everything that we've seen so far is just what I like to call yellow pad production sketch. And this gets to the brass tacks of anything and everything related to that project.
Correct. What you would be approving tonight is actually contracting formally with Fanning and Howie for their professional services.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that's understood, because sometimes people see, well, I saw this drawing. No, that's somebody taking 5 minutes to do something. That's not the brass tacks of it. Thank you.
Okay, if no other questions, we'll call roll, please.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Ms. Parkers?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to move to executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, or compensation of a public employee or official, as well as discussion with the board's legal counsel of disputes involving the board that are the subject of pending or imminent court action.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Pritchard.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. West. I would like everyone to know that we do not anticipate taking any action. We will not be taking any action when we return out of executive session. Mr. Chambers?
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Ms. Parkers?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Enjoy your evening.